when it comes to the natural thing, I would, we were talking about men being protectors. I think men need to stand up and like, we got to protect, because when it comes to protecting women, I don't think it's just protecting you from physical threats. It's protecting you from the threats of mind.
Like your own thoughts?
Could be. But also, not just your own thoughts, but have those thoughts been influenced by society? And do I need to deprogram you? Or do I need to put in new thoughts?
Reboot you.
That sounds terrible, but I guess what I'm trying to say is like the threat, because I mean, look, the plastic surgery industry is like the entire cosmetic industry, billions, trillions of dollar industry, and society, consumerism in general has an incentive to keep you feeling dissatisfied with who you are, dissatisfied with how you look. And this isn't just cosmetics. When you're sad, when you're not happy with yourself, you buy all kinds of other shit too. And society has a vested interest in making sure you're a good consumer and that you buy shit that you don't need. People who go shopping when they're feeling, what's that? Shopping therapy? What's it called? Retail therapy. Right? It has a vested interest in making, so it has a vested interest in making sure you feel shitty about yourself so they can siphon as much resources and money from you as they can, right? And this is absolutely exemplified when it comes to cosmetics, when it comes to makeup, and when it comes to plastic surgery. You don't look like this. You need to look like this to be loved, to be accepted, to be approved of, not just by men, but by your peers. Women say it themselves. You wear the makeup for other women. I actually believe this to some degree. You guys, you're in competition with each other, And so you wear makeup for other women, you wear makeup for men, you get the fake titties for probably men. And I just think it's kind of fucked up that y'all are cutting yourselves apart. You're spending tens of thousands of dollars. You're going under anesthesia, which is dangerous. Women die getting these procedures. They either die on the operating table or they die after the fact from... they get a post-surgery stroke. They have an infection. I think it's a despicable state of affairs that women feel compelled to cut themselves open, put in plastic, because you're dissatisfied with something about you.
Well, we feel compelled because that's the society standard. Like, that's the standard that most men want, and that's like what we see in magazines.
I don't think most men want women with BBLs. I don't think most men want women with fake boobs. And I would tell you, as women, and any young women who are watching, the men that skip over you without the fake boobs, the men that skip over you without the BBL, good. That type of guy ain't the type of dude that in my view, is going to be a good partner. He's going to be very shallow. He's going to be very superficial. Guys who like, oh, she doesn't have the BBL, she doesn't have fake boobs, her boobs are too small. I don't think that's the guy you want.
I agree.
Is that the guy you want?
No.
You want a guy who he's only with you because your boobs are big? He's not with you because your boobs are too small? That's not the guy you want.
Like a sex object, not for the person you are. He'll treat you like a sex object. That's what he's looking for. He's looking for a sex doll, not a partner.
And this isn't just women's fault. Look, there's men out there that there are men that like that. And look, you might say, for example, well, why are they liking all these girls' photos, these Instagram models with the lipo and the BBL and the plastic surgery and the lip and all that shit, right? Yeah, there's men out there that do that. I think a lot of these women have they've got fake followers and all this shit. But I think men need to start coming out and saying, nah, you don't do that shit. And I think a lot of men, like you ask men point blank, they say, yeah, I don't like BBL. I don't like fake boobs. I don't like lip filler.
Well, and to think back, to our grandparents, great grandparents' ages, when they were our age, they didn't have that yet. These women were still so beautiful, and they were happier. More marriages, more, things were just healthier relationships, all that.
Well,
and they didn't have the, that wasn't a thing back then.
I wonder if it's like this, it's this sort of like escalation of, like, for example, in a sport, if nobody does steroids, everybody's playing on the same field. But like once enough women, there's one makeup product. Now there's 100 different makeup products that you can wear. Now there's all kinds of crazy like skincare and cosmetic shit you can do. And all like these other women are doing it and they're out competing. Or like, I don't know. It's like, it's kind of just, I don't know where I'm going with that. But
I think it's also because of social media. We compare ourselves to other girls like constantly on TikTok, on Instagram, and everything is edited, and then you want more because of the internet.
I think it's really sad, the example that we majority of women nowadays set for younger girls growing up. We need to be a better example and have respect for ourselves, and teach young girls to grow up and have respect for themselves, and teach them that their natural beauty is true beauty, and that's how God created them. And
I mean, I've spoken with a lot of men. A lot of men seem to definitely prefer natural. You can believe me, you cannot. I'll just give you my own anecdote, then we'll move on to the next thing. Again, and look, really quick, like, do men like big boobs? Sure. Do they like a big butt? Sure. But I think they want that natural. They want it natural. And I think a lot of men, if you ask them like, well, would you prefer a girl with fake boobs or an A cup? I think a lot of men will say they prefer the A cup. If the girl doesn't have the biggest butt versus like a girl with a BBL, I think they'd prefer the girl if she's just, she ain't got a fucking.
Well, they would prefer it, but they would still like photos and like be attracted to that. And that's what kind of makes some girls like insecure. It's like, well, he says he prefers this, but at the same time, he's like liking those photos. He's like looking at.
Well, I mean, like, and I mean, you're right. Like, but it's hard. Maybe in this regard, I'm a bit of an outlier, but like, and this is prescriptive advice to men. I don't follow girls on Instagram. I don't like girls' photos on Instagram. If I'm in a relationship, I don't watch porn. Like, maybe that makes me an outlier. I don't know. But prescriptively to men, I think it's simp shit to be following a chick on Instagram and like liking her shit. Like, don't be, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. I don't follow anybody. I follow my own Instagram page on Instagram. That's it. Anyways, we'll move on. We've got a few more things that we're pretty close.
Inquisitor Zeal donated $100.
Sorry for the delay.
Brian, what the hell is with the triple negatives? For example, disagree it's not wrong to refuse to date.
Yeah,
These are women. They're sub 80 IQ on average. How do you expect them to pass these questions?
Yeah, some of them, it is like some double negatives, triple negatives. That is fair. Some of these can be rewarded. The questionnaire is new, but Inquisitor Zeal, sorry for the delay on the TTS, but thank you so much for sending one in. Do you guys want to shoot a shot back? You just said you guys have sub 80 IQ.
I mean, you can't really read the questions clearly, so.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think we tried our best answering
Roth
the
donated
questions.
$10.
Oh, what the hell? Why
Damn, now I want a French dip. Thanks, Brian.
What is, I don't know what that is.
Like Arby's.
You were referring to meat.
Arby's roast beef.
I think the TTS is not 10 yet, or is not 10, guys. I think I made I see. I made a mistake when I changed the TTS setting. Well, Wrath, you got a little free TTS. There you go. Okay, moving things along here. Couple more, then we'll do the roast session, then we're going to wrap. Sorry, guys. Oh, okay. Isabella, feminism is not about equality. You disagree. Also, Jasmine, you disagreed with the statement?
Yes.
So you think feminism is about equality?
No,
Maybe that TTS was right here.
I think in its root it is, but it's gone too far. There's like third generation feminism, and it's gone too far.
Okay. Well, so you still think though that it is about equality?
Yes, in its roots.
Okay.
Yes.
In its roots.
It's
well, let me ask you.
to.
Sure. So again, won't linger too long on this one, but would you say like first wave feminism was about equality?
Yes.
Okay. First wave feminism, would you say around first wave feminism would be like right to vote?
Yeah.
That was first wave feminism. Yeah. Okay. So equality, right? Why were women fighting for the right to vote without the corresponding duties that men have when it comes to military conscription?
I think they should be.
Right, but so the feminists were demanding equal rights to vote.
Were they demanding not to be drafted as well?
Yes.
I think they were.
Yep. And well, regardless of what happened, they secured the right to vote without the corresponding responsibility of having to be subject to military conscription. For men to be able to vote, they had to face the draft, face military. They were subject to military conscription. Do you know what happened a few years before 1920, which is when women got the right to vote?
No, elaborate. Explain, please. What happened?
You don't know?
No.
On the topic, you don't know what happened a few years before 1920?
With the war?
Yeah, what happened?
There was war?
Which one?
One.
World War II.
One.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
okay. I don't know if you have the
My
requisite.
history teacher hates me.
You might not have the requisite historical. Okay, so right before 1920, you had World War I, 1914, 1918. Men in the United States were drafted in this conflict. This was a catastrophic. Are you familiar with World War I at all?
Somewhat, yeah.
I mean, at the time, it was the most catastrophic.
Yeah, I know that.
I mean, World War II was worse, but at the time, it was the worst, most deaths, et cetera, et cetera. So right on the heels of mass amounts of male military deaths, women were campaigning for equality to secure a right that men had for a very short period of time without the corresponding responsibility of being subject to military conscription. Even the early forms of feminism were clearly not about equality, because if it was, wouldn't they have attempted to secure the right to vote with the corresponding responsibility and duty that men faced in order to secure their own right to vote?
I think they were fighting to gain something, not necessarily looking at what you had to do.
Right, so women don't have any duties.
I think they were looking at it in the way that they just wanted to be on.
Right, so you wanted privileges basically, without any corresponding.
I don't know if they thought of
But okay,
that.
here, look, I'll make it super simple.
Yeah.
Okay, men have the right to vote.
Yeah.
That right to vote comes with and is like attached to a corresponding duty and responsibility.
Yes.
Women want the right to vote, get the right to vote. No corresponding duty or responsibility. Is that equality between men and women?
No.
Okay. So equality, you would agree then that equality would demand that both men and women, if they get the right to vote, they have to be subject to military conscription. Fair?
Yeah.
Fair proposition?
Yes.
Okay. It's 2024. Why aren't women forced to register for the selective service?
They're not going to fight to put themselves at a disadvantage. If men maybe asked and wanted equality, if men wanted that equality, then maybe that would probably happen.
But you would then have to agree that we're on the third wave of feminism.
Yeah.
So for the first wave of feminism, the second wave of feminism, and the third wave of feminism, if feminisms purport to fight for equality, why have they not attempted to equalize military conscription?
I don't know.
I think
you've got three waves. Go ahead.
I think, for women, they're, traditional woman's role is to stay home and take care of their family.
Very quickly, I don't mean to cut you off. I couldn't find the unmute fast enough, but I wanted to piggyback off what Brian was saying very quickly.
Sure.
The original anti-suffragettes, those who were against the suffrage movement, women's right to vote, there was a bunch of women, most women actually didn't want the right and campaigned very hard against women who were campaigning for the right. Their main argument was that they should not be allowed to vote unless they could be conscripted. That was their main argument against the suffrage movement.
Yeah, and so it would occur to me, I mean, you said that they're just trying to secure benefits, right? So feminism is not about equality. In my view, the most charitable definition is feminism is woman's advocacy. It's also like a bunch of other like toxic man-hating shit, but like at the best, it's women's advocacy, which is not equality because, and here's why, and this doesn't, there's other components here too when it comes to the equality argument. So feminists, they won't fight for any form of equality which could conceivably come to the detriment of women. So if women have like a privilege in society, feminists will be like, ooh, let's keep that. Even if it's unfair to men, they'll be like, no, we want to keep this because it benefits women, right? Because women's advocacy. But if we get rid of it, or if we bump men up and give men that same benefit, right, which they don't do, they don't care about men. So they'll say, no, we got to keep that because it would create equality, right? Like, for example, let's say men don't have a benefit and women do. Yeah. And if we take away the benefit from women, that would be equal, right?
Yeah. Or bringing the benefit to men, yes.
But do you think women or feminists rather, do you think feminists are prepared to say, okay, let's take away benefits from women so it's equal to men? No, right? And so this is why, in my position, feminism is not about equality. It's about women's advocacy. Advocacy, nothing wrong with that, but let's not parade feminism as an equality movement.
And in an ideal world, it would be for that, but you're right, it's not ideal, and it's not how it is.
You should not be a feminist then.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No, look, it's okay. Andrew, did you have more, Andrew? I don't know if I cut you off there. Or...
No, I feel like I cut into a little bit
you were
there.
Totally good.
Yeah, just that's the general idea. The general idea was that if there's supposed to be voting, there's supposed to be duty, which comes with it. The original women who campaigned against suffrage, because most women voted against suffrage. Most people don't know that, but when it was given to them to have the right to vote, they voted against it. That's why it was decided in the courts. But their main argument was that they wanted to have all the privileges in society with none of the duties. And so they didn't want to be used as political pawns by the political system and the political class. And that's exactly what ended up happening. Is they've been used as pawns by the political class now.
And there's other examples of this too, like not just the draft, because a lot of people like to dismiss that whole thing. Well, there hasn't been a draft in a long time, blah, 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 although men still have to register with the Selective Service. And if they don't, there's all kinds of ramifications. But like, for example, feminist organizations will, what's the term? Feminist organizations will, there's a specific term, but it's evading me, will lobby politicians. For example, I think this happened in Florida. I believe it was the National Organization for Women of Women. They were trying to equalize child custody between men and women in Florida. I don't know the exact details. I could be getting one or two things off here, but they're trying to say, well, okay, in the event of a custody dispute between a mother and a father, the custody should default to being just 50-50 equal. And if I have my facts correct, I could be wrong if somebody wants to fact check me. Feminist organizations said, no. We're fighting against equality. There is some benefit or some basis for having women the custody, either they're more likely to get it or defaulting to them or something like this. So oftentimes feminist organizations will actually fight against equality again if it somehow conceivably could be to the detriment of women, even if it would create equality between men and women. So moving on to the next thing, you two of you said women disagreed that women are not oppressed. That was Amanda and I think Isabella. Amanda, how are women oppressed?
I mean, I think that the double standard of slut shaming is a perfect example of oppression against women.
Anything else besides that?
I mean, not in the United States.
Okay.
Why is that? I don't actually understand. How is that oppressive?
They're oppressed. They can't be sluts, Andrew.
Yeah, how's it oppressive to hold a stigma against women who have a high body count? Other women do as well. It's not just men.
Yeah, I understand that. I don't think we should be shaming people for their body counts. So
yeah,
I think that the double standard for men comparatively to women is where the oppression comes in. You're using intimidation.
What's the double standard?
That it's okay for a woman or for a man to have a high body count, but not a woman.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
So yeah, I don't understand how that's oppressive.
That's your opinion. I think that it's oppressive.
Well, I haven't given an opinion. I'm just telling you I don't actually understand why it's oppressive, though.
Yeah, how's it oppressive?
You're trying to influence her personal decision making based on your intimidation factors.
We should.
Well, wait. Hang on a second. How are you trying to influence her personal decision making?
By making her feel bad about what she's doing.
So, the stigma, you're saying that the social stigma as relayed by men is just that they don't prefer women who have high body counts, right?
Sorry, you cut out there a second. Can you
when you say slut shaming, what does that mean? Like, are men walking down the street and you're just calling women sluts, or?
No, I mean like the fact that I think the earlier conversation was women with a high body count don't necessarily deserve what was the term?
A traditional man.
A chivalrous or traditional man.
Well, I was making that argument when it comes to sex workers, but sure, yeah, like
yeah. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
And so I think that having that perspective is let me think about how to articulate this. So the oppression comes from the judgment position, right? Like at the end of the day, the judgment does not lie with you, the individual. It lies between that person and who they are meeting at the end of their life. And so that's where I think that trying to use our human bodies to influence other humans doesn't I think that that's oppressive to that person. It's none of our business what's going on over there.
Okay. Let's say for a second that, 70% of men, or no, let's make it higher. Let's say 90% of men and 90% of women were not promiscuous and stayed virgins until the day they got married, and only 10% didn't. Would it be okay to slut shame then?
Slut shame the 10%?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think that you should shame anyone for their sexuality or activity.
Now, okay, gotcha. So the oppression here, if it came from both men and women, would be creating the social stigma around the promiscuity, correct?
The oppression would be surrounding the promiscuity? Yeah.
Yeah, stigma around it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm anti this.
Yes.
Yeah, but the thing is like, can you think of a better way to influence out of society things that you don't want in society than using social stigma?
I mean, I think you used this example recently, and like the rebuttal that came to mind for me would be prohibition, right? Like the government tried to kind of like get our drinking problem under control by...
Well, that wasn't by stigma, that was via lawfare. So they just outlawed it outright. It was not due to social stigma. So nobody's outlawing you.
But there was stigma
right?
that led to the legislation.
From women, yeah. Women did that. That's correct. No, I'm not kidding. It really
no,
was.
I believe it.
Women,
I have no doubt.
They had the temperance movement, and that's what led to that. So, but the thing is the social stigma, which was there, which led to lawfare, ended up being repealed very, very, very quickly. But nobody's talking about making a law that says that you can't be promiscuous. What I'm asking is, if there was a behavior in society which people didn't like, then creating a social stigma, wouldn't that be an efficient way to get rid of the behavior?
I don't think that it's a foolproof method, so I don't think that it's appropriate. No.
Well, what method would be appropriate?
I mean, I don't think you can control anyone.
Yeah, well, I mean, we control people all the time. I mean, you stop at a stop sign, right?
I mean, we're in California.
Yeah, I mean, you control them all the time. You put in lines and stop signs. You got to get driver's licenses. You have to fill out paperwork. I mean, it's an entire grid. In fact, they say most of your day you were controlled. Like just getting from point A to point B. It's control, right? So I don't know what you mean by we don't control people. We definitely control people. We control the shit out of people. So the question is like, why is it bad to have a social stigma against something in society that people tend not to care for? That seems fine to me.
I think that sex is a very natural part of life, and it should be talked about more freely in a way that is empowering and not diminishing. And that's where I think the true power of a person's sexuality comes from, in that education and having transparent conversations, not just with their friends, but with people that are talking to them about sex. Like, I don't know, I've never heard this conversation kind of come up, but are you an abstinence-only sex education person, or are you a full, like, what's your position on that? Do you think that they should teach abstinence-only or all-inclusive sex education?
Yeah, I think that considering for most of our history, most women and men were virgins on their wedding night. This is a brand new occurrence. If you look at the rate of STIs, unplanned pregnancies, which lead to abortion, all of these other factors, I can't actually think of a good reason why we as a society would not want to promote abstinence until marriage. I actually can't think of a single good reason for that. Do you have one?
Yeah, I think sexual health is a very good reason to teach all-inclusive sex education.
What would that have to do with sexual health?
Being aware of what's supposed to be happening with your body and what's not supposed to be happening. Yeah, you can be
aware of all of that and stay abstinent. Like, what would that have to do if let's say we as a society, you still get sex ed, you know how all the parts function, how all the parts work, right? Nobody's saying you can outlaw that. We've had sex ed, by the way, for a long time. But
I don't agree with how it's taught now, by the way.
If we as a society said, okay, we're going to run a national campaign, and the national campaign is designed to promote abstinence until marriage and not sleeping around with people outside of marriage, what would actually be the negative side effect to society of that?
I think the misunderstanding of knowledge and the secretiveness is where the danger comes from. So just like if you tell a kid, don't drink, right? Your parents all tell us don't drink. We all end up stealing alcohol from our parents and having bad experiences. And so from my perspective, I think it's better
why not just hand them the beer?
I mean, there are some parents that do.
Yeah, so I mean, so your argument here is like, you gotta go fuck people, or else you're gonna go fuck people.
I think you should have a pretty solid understanding of your sexual awareness before you go into a committed relationship.
So why wouldn't we instead run a national campaign advising people to go have as much sex as possible?
I mean, I would tell people they should masturbate for sure.
Yeah, you want a national campaign for masturbation? So your argument here is, so let me just ask you this. If we ran a national campaign, just advertisements only from the federal government, a promotion, in other words, that people had more sex, do you think people would have more sex?
If we ran a national campaign that they should have more sex?
Yeah.
Do I think that they would?
Yeah.
That's a weighted question in today's media. I think that if you're not a free thinker, yeah, you might be inclined to that. I look at anything coming from any sort of media as educational material.
Well, this wouldn't just be media, right? Yeah, I mean, you can't say propaganda doesn't work. Look at smoking. Smoking used to be able to smoke everywhere you ever wanted to smoke, and through massive massive media and government propaganda, it's been essentially outlawed everywhere. The only place you can really smoke is like outside, but even in some outdoor areas, it's usually confined now. And it used to be that if you were in that studio and it was filled with smoke, that would just have been life, right? So, I mean, clearly it works. Same thing with getting people to smoke. They ran a huge campaign to do that, and it got almost everybody smoking. So, I mean, clearly it works. So by that metric, knowing that...
Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So by that metric, knowing that, if you were to run a national campaign for abstinence, don't you think less people would have sex? If they saw that as like being patriotic, and there was and there was a big social stigma against it, and all the government agencies were telling you this is bad for the country, we need to not do this, don't you think less people would have sex?
It could be likely.
Yeah, so I mean, so my question is like, what are the negative side effects of that, of less people having sex before they're married?
I'm gonna have her answer. You guys can continue. Actually, I'll just trigger.
Okay.
I'll play it now. Then.
Lol Paladins donated $100.
Thank you, Lol Paladins.
I'm shocked, so very shocked, that the woman who wants to cheat on her partner comes to the defense of women who want to be sluts. You are everything that is wrong with dating and marriage.
Lol Paladins. By the way, you can still
Did
on
I
the
say
hundreds.
I want to cheat on my husband?
I'm not
okay.
sure
I was like,
you
I'm pretty sure
did.
I didn't.
But Lol Paladins. By the way, you can do the little trick
Pretty
thingy
sure
for the audio on these two. But thank you so much for the message, Lol Paladins. Also, guys, we're getting into the roast section here. So from here on out, the TTS has just been lowered to, we're going to do $20 TTS. We're going to pause. You can send them in. We're going to pause it. Then once we get through everything, we'll let the roast session come through. Go ahead. Do you want to respond to Lol Paladins?
Yeah, I never said I wanted to cheat on my husband, so I don't know what that's about.
And then, did you? I don't know if you recall.
Can you repeat the question, Andrew?
Just
Sorry.
very quickly, if it were the case that if you were to run a national campaign like that, like we did against smoking and drunk driving and things like that, which have been highly, highly effective, and it actually led to way less sex in society until people were married, I can't think of a single actual downside to that.
I mean, I guess I would only rebuttal with, I think that especially as a woman in today's society, right? Like we are having a transition of time periods. I think being aware of your sexuality going into a relationship is very important, because how can you be comfortable having those conversations with your partner if you haven't had those moments with yourself? And
well, how do you think that people used to do it, like in the 20s and 30s and 40s when they were getting married when they were virgins? It didn't seem like somebody had to like go in and show the man where the penis went.
Premarital sex.
You know what I mean?
Premarital sex still happened back then.
Children, yeah, I know, but not for the vast majority of people.
I understand that, but
so why?
Again,
how are
the
they able to figure
times
this
now,
out?
right? Divorce is more easily attainable. I think that
they had less divorces too,
because it wasn't allowed.
You know, it was allowed. Yes, just not no fault. You had to go show a cause, but yeah, it was definitely allowed.
Right, but sometimes even getting your ass beat by your husband wasn't cause enough for a divorce. So that's where
you could show cause, and your show cause would be, I got my ass beat by my husband, and the state would give you a divorce. That was one of the causes for sure.
But when it's a male-dominated industry back then, the divorces weren't granted.
If you don't mind jumping in, if you don't mind me jumping in here,
I would like to just go back to my previous question, just very quickly.
Yeah.
So you're saying that the negative side effect would be that you think women should be out there having sex before they settle down with a man. Is that correct?
I think the negative side effect of waiting until marriage.
Of abstinence, and more people were abstinent and didn't have sex until marriage. Your downside of knowing your sexuality is basically saying that you think women should be having sex before they settle down with a man.
I think that they need to be comfortable in sexual scenarios before
what does
they're
that mean?
settling
They
down.
need to fuck, right? They need to fuck?
It can be anything. You can have
but
makeout
what
sessions. You can have.
What does
there's
it
lots
mean?
of things leading up to intercourse that you can do before then. So
they
having
need to suck dick?
Sorry, what's that?
Do they need to suck dick before they
If
settle
that's what
down?
they feel like they need to figure out, then sure.
So the idea here is that you would be opposed to this because you think that women need to be fucking before they settle down, and they need to be sucking dick before they settle down.
I think everybody should,
so that
not
they
just
are
women.
comfortable in their sexuality. Does that even make sense to you?
I
Like,
think
doesn't that seem
everyone
silly?
should be experiencing it.
Everybody should be out there? Should the men be out there sucking dick too?
If that's what they're into.
What the fuck? Wait, I don't know if we fully got an answer on this, but how exactly is it that women are oppressed if they are being, I don't know if slut shamed? Is that what your position is? Like, the double standard is oppressive to women?
Yes.
Just how is it oppressive?
I don't think that a woman who is experienced sexually should be shamed.
Okay.
And so,
well, I think it is a bit, we can have that conversation. I don't know if it's oppressive. Like, I don't think it's oppression.
I can just very quickly grant it. Sure, they shouldn't be shamed. So nobody says, hey, you're a skank, you're a slut, you're this or that. But if all men collectively decided that it was against their preference to have a woman with a high body count, would that still be oppression?
That's their prerogative. There's still going to be a man that's going to be down with it.
Wait, no. There would be a massive social stigma against those women. They just wouldn't slut shame them. They just wouldn't get together with them. Would that be oppressive?
I mean, those women wouldn't exist without the men that were fucking them in the first place. So.
Oh no, let's just say it was a very small amount, like 2 or 3% of men who were doing most of the slut making, meaning that they had like 10 women for every one man under this hypergamous society, of which I can point to many, right? The top like 5-10%, right? They made all the sluts, and the other 90% of men just didn't want to get with them. Is that oppression?
I mean, those are separate societies, so they're not like...
No, it's the same society. Just 90% of men don't want to get together with all of the sluts who were made sluts by only 10% of men who were able to get those women. So 90% of all the sluts are made by only 10% of the men. I'm sorry, 100% of the sluts are made by only 10% of the men. 90% of the men do not make the sluts but refuse to date the sluts. Is that oppression?
No.
And that is the society that me and Brian advocate for. We advocate for the society where, if it were the case that there was like 10% of men who took advantage of the hypergamous nature of women, and therefore, if we were to read certain reports, for instance, which say, hey, how is it possible that we have 60 or 70% of men who have no girlfriend, but we have 60% of women or 70% of women reporting they do have a boyfriend? That means that they must be dating the same boys, right? Things like that. Those aren't accurate numbers, but just for like the sake of argument, it's close enough to demonstrate the point. If that is the case, right, then it's not social shame that those men refuse to end up with those women, right? I guess basically the only beef that you would have would be with the guys you were fucking, right? Or the sluts were fucking. That would be the only beef.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, great.
And I guess quick thing on moving off the oppression though, you do have an issue with the double standard. Who here thinks it's a bit, unfair that, women perhaps are more shamed than men when it comes to being promiscuous? That's your grievance, right? Unfair.
Yeah, I feel.
Yeah, it's a double standard, but I mean, or the other thing is why is it that there's
but what's wrong with double standards anyway? Double standards are fine.
Yeah, for example, I don't think there's perfect symmetry on this thing, because women desire all kinds of things in a partner, in a boyfriend, that they don't bring to the table. So for example, would it be a double standard? A guy with a high body count, he's like, I only want to date virgins.
That's his prerogative. He likes inexperienced women. That's fine.
But you would consider that a double standard, or you might even say kind of hypocritical or wrong for a guy with a high body count to be I'd rather date a woman with a low body count or a virgin?
I don't know if that,
or is it just are you saying, just preferences, I guess that's fine?
Yeah, I think that's his preference. Is
it weird? Is it a weird preference or?
Yeah, I think it's kind of, no, I don't think it's, Well, I don't know. That's a weighted question. I think it can be weird depending on the motivation for wanting the body count. If it's just because he wants someone that has a low body count and he's been through them and he kind of knows how it goes, then that's one thing. But I think that there can be many motivations for that position.
Okay.
The oppression of slut shaming shall not stop until the oppression against women being such height supremacists stops. Until women stop oppressing men based on their height, they must not ever give up on the fight of oppressing them back based on their promiscuity. That seems like if you don't want to hold the double standard, right, you would have to say that men are quite oppressed by women who shame them often for not reaching their height requirements. They are height supremacists, if you will.
It's true. Wait, I guess one thing on this. So, do you think hookup culture is good or bad?
Hookup culture, I think is...
So I guess the tendency of people to engage in casual sexual encounters, or like the movement away from or devaluing of monogamous long-term relationships.
Movement away from
that. So I mean, hookup culture would it's more so like the action of like people engaging in promiscuity, having multiple sexual partners, or even having a string of just casual sexual partners, kind of evading or movement away from long-term monogamous relationships.
I think hookup culture can serve some purpose in
which
that...
is what? Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
I think that hookup culture can serve some purpose. I think that...
STDs?
Are you going to keep interrupting me? Or do I get to finish my whole thought? Okay, thank you. So I think hookup culture can be positive in some ways, but I do think it has taken it back from our relationship building skills. I think that social media especially has been detrimental to the expectation of lifestyles. It's a highlight reel. Everything you put online is a highlight reel. And so I think much like the conversations of equality and disagreements in relationships, I think it's just easier now with hookup culture to like walk away with it and be done and move on to the next, so that's a detriment to us. But I think that the sex positivity that comes from being affirmed in your position and your choices and knowing what you like and don't like is going to help you find a better partner in the long run.
So how about this? In totality, is hookup culture good or bad? Granting that maybe there are some good things about hookup culture, I'm sure you probably agree there's some bad. In total, is it good or bad?
I don't know the answer to that. I can't decide which way, one way or the other.
Let me ask the rest of the panel. Hookup culture, good or bad?
Now, Brian, I'm at 3 a.m. my time. I got my out there, but I am going to do a raid.
Before you, Andrew, before you go, I'll make one quick point here. I did want you want to do like a quick 2 minutes on Knowles really quick?
I can do that.
Let me, just the point I was trying to make on that is that when it comes to, I guess, the shaming, you object to the shaming. I think most people tend to agree that hookup culture is bad. We're obviously not going to be able to pass any laws that put any sort of limits on men or women's sexual activity. So the only way, if we as a society deem hookup culture to, like, we can't have our cake and eat it too. What's the entailment of hookup culture bad? We want it to go away. Okay, we need to build up long-term relationships. We need to stifle, not through laws, but through social shaming, promiscuity. The only way to do that, again, we're not going to pass laws saying you can't like fuck people or whatever. Maybe, I don't know, maybe, but that's not going to happen because whatever. So the only way to achieve the destruction or reduction or limitation of hookup culture is by shaming. Ergo, shaming promiscuity is good, and it's the only way to stop hookup culture. Any thoughts on that?
Nope.
So you're on my team? Like, we should shame sluts?
No, I'm not on your team. I disagree.
And fuckboys? No fuckboy shaming? No slut shaming?
I mean, if we're not shaming any of the sluts, then
okay. So then, I mean, well, you weren't able to give me a definitive if you think hookup culture overall in totality is good or bad. I think everybody else here said it was bad.
Yeah.
I think it's bad. The only way we're going to achieve, like, if something is bad, we should probably do something to, like, counteract it. In this case, the only means of achieving a reduction or elimination of hookup culture would be like substantial social shaming of promiscuity, sluts, fuckboys, this sort of thing. Absent that, it's going to continue. It's going to get worse. STD rates are going to continue to rise. People are going to continue to be dissatisfied in relationships. People are going to continue getting into other sort of bad situations when it comes to casual sexual encounters. In any case, Andrew, you do have to leave. So you wanted to do a quick response to Michael Knowles.
Yeah. So very quickly, too, it was nice to meet the entire panel, and I'm very glad that you guys came on. We were able to have this actually fairly reasonable discussion most of the night. It was kind of, that doesn't happen that often, right? Usually we have at least a couple, like you've been on a few of these panels, but anyway. So yeah, over to the Michael Knowles thing. He had prefaced a video. It was an exchange I had with another guest on here, Nala. But he had prefaced it with, he doesn't want to get involved in any drama. And I think that that's fine, so I'm not going to give him any. But I do want to say this, that most of the people who have reacted poorly to this clip, whether it's to me or to her, probably didn't actually watch the entire episode. And they probably need to do that before they say a word about it. My challenge to Michael Knowles is that I've seen a lot of the kind of sniping around about the manosphere and this and that, and kind of taking the more feminist perspective. And I'd like to challenge Michael Knowles to a debate on the Whatever podcast, just 1v1. He's been on before, so have I. We know Brian Atlas will be a fair moderator. And the reason I would like to challenge him to this debate is because the only time I've ever seen him actually engage with this sphere, which is full of the most degenerate scumbags on planet Earth, was in a debate against Pearl Davis, and I was the one who prepped her for that debate. So I would actually like to take him on his various views, because I don't think he knows very much about what he's talking about on this topic. And I'm an Orthodox Christian. He's a Catholic, and I think it would be absolutely fine to have such a debate. So that would be my challenge to Michael Knowles. And also that ultimately, I think most people have a very, very wrong idea about what happens with the former prostitute to save your pipeline, which is currently happening right under everybody's nose, and we just kind of pretend that it's not happening. And I think that it's something that needs to be addressed. I'm often criticized for not taking on the best of the best debaters, even though I do. So right now, you can see publicly I'm offering such a challenge. And I will, of course, split the tab with Brian Atlas, along with a reasonable fee, if that's what Michael wants, to come out to the Whatever podcast, have this much-needed debate. So that's what I'd like to say on that.
Can we see the clip?
It's very, very long.
Yeah,
okay.
And he's not here. He's not here to defend himself. In all fairness, one thing that Brian's always been really good about, right, is if the person's not there to defend themselves, he usually won't allow people to say one way or the other about them. That's always been a good thing about Brian Atlas. So we'll leave it there. But yeah, clip it, ship it. Let's see if it's actually true that he will tangle up on these issues, which is a place where he's desperately needed, so that we can at least get his side versus mine. And I'll leave it there.